Good evening. Welcome to the first lecture of this new Distinguished Faculty Lecture Series. It's great to see all of you here, and thank you for coming to recognize and learn from tonight's speaker. My name is Royce Engstrom. I'm the Provost here at the University of Montana. It's indeed a pleasure to take time to celebrate the accomplishments of our faculty. The faculty represents the single greatest resource of any university, and we're especially fortunate to have a truly outstanding faculty here at the University of Montana. I'm immensely proud of our faculty, those who have been here for much of their career, and I am amazed at the quality of those that we're able to recruit on a yearly basis. The dedication of our faculty members to their disciplines and to their students is a big part of the reason why the University of Montana is the special place that it is. Tonight is a renewal of this lecture series, which began in 2002 under then Provost Lois Muir. The purpose of the series is to recognize faculty members who themselves have been recognized with prestigious honors for their accomplishments and for the impact of their work. We will, with the help of an advisory committee, identify such faculty members for future years of this series. We'll plan to have this series in the fall semester, since in the spring, the alumni lecture series runs throughout that semester. And of course, the presidential lecture series runs all year under the leadership of Professor Richard Drake, bringing us distinguished scholars from around the nation and around the world. This year, we're pleased to feature 3 faculty members who are described in the announcement that you probably received. Professor Jakki Mohr, who will be introduced momentarily, is tonight's lecturer, of course, and was selected for this series because she was designated as our most recent Regents professor. On October 14th, we'll hear from Professor of Chemistry Garen Smith, who's sitting right up here in the front, and he was selected last spring as the Case Montana Professor of the Year. And on November 10th, Professor Scott Mills of the Wildlife Biology program will speak. He was selected as the 2009 John Simon Guggenheim Fellow. I hope that you'll be able to attend those other 2 lectures as well. We're fortunate to have such outstanding people from whom to choose, and I can see that a really difficult part of this lecture series is going to be to limit the number of lectures in the face of such an outstanding and active faculty. So after tonight's lecture, we'll have a short period of question and answer, and then I hope you will join us for the reception afterwards, which will be set up in the back of the room, where you can have the opportunity to speak one-on-one with Professor Mohr. And now to introduce Professor Mohr, I would like to call on the Dean of the School of Business Administration, Dean Larry Gianchetta. Larry?
Well, thank you, and thank you for being here. I think you're all in for a treat. Along with being the newest Regents professor, Jakki is the Jeff and Martha Hamilton Distinguished Faculty Fellow within the School of Business and has been for a few years. Jakki wanted me to share with you some personal tidbits, and I found them very interesting myself. She started college at Boise State University, and she was going to be a veterinarian. And in her freshman year, she had a couple of discoveries. One that kind of surprised her was that she loved her economics class. The other that was even more surprising is she had a tendency to pass out during animal lab experiments. And so I think it's about that time that she changed her direction a little bit. After her undergraduate degree at Boise State, she went on for a master's of marketing at Colorado State University. And a unique opportunity occurred there. She was a TA for a faculty member who sadly passed away. But it did create an opportunity. There's a silver lining with everything. And she took the class over. And as she described to me, she got the bug for teaching. And she's been a very effective teacher ever since. Then Jakki went off after her master's degree down to the Silicon Valley and worked for some high-tech companies. Among them was Hewlett-Packard. And it was really her experience with Hewlett-Packard and advertising and advertising of high technology that in that corporate structure, she met a mentor that really directed her to the marketing of high technology products. Then she went off to do her PhD at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And immediately after that, she went to the University of Colorado in Boulder. And she was there for about 8 years, and we kind of discovered who she was and where she was. Now, then the trick was to get her at the University of Montana. Well, obviously we were successful, and while she was at the University of Colorado, you won't be surprised to know that she was recognized with several teaching awards and for her scholarship. Now I'm going to go to the script and just read a few specific details about Jakki. I think the reason that, well, there are many reasons, but probably the compelling reason that Jakki is the newest Regents professor in the Montana University system is she's really written the seminal work in her field, and she's really considered the world expert in the marketing of high technology products and innovations. Her book, The Marketing of High Technology Products and Innovation, has multiple editions, but more impressive than that, it's been created in multiple languages. So needless to say, it's used in universities throughout the world. Her research, her academic research has appeared in the very top journals in her discipline, and she also has served on the editorial boards of those journals. She received at the University of Montana the Scholar of the Year Award in 2004 and the Presidential Faculty Award in 2009. For her teaching, she's received numerous awards, and I'll only list a few here. In 2008, she got the Outstanding Marketing Teacher Award given by the Academy of Marketing Science. In 2005, like Garen, but in 2005, she received the Carnegie Foundation Montana Professor of the Year Award. I think the one that's most special to me in all the years that I've been at the university is the one that the students give, and that's the most inspirational teacher. And she was recognized for that in 2002. In addition to teaching at the University of Montana, Jakki teaches in many other universities throughout the world. Most recently, Switzerland, India, Italy. In executive education, I know she does a lot of work with the Peter Drucker School at Claremont. The list really goes on, and you didn't come to listen to me. I guess I'll just say a couple other personal things. Jakki, aside from her professional and academic success, enjoys many outdoor activities with her active family, Michael, who is here, Willie, who is here, Willie, age 16. Michael, she didn't give your age, I'm sorry to report. And Claire, age 13. And this is the phrase I love to read because she wrote this personally in terms of comments for me to consider. She is very happy to call UM and Missoula her home, and thank God for that, because there's lots of people that would like her to be somewhere else. You know, beyond what she has done professionally is who Jakki is personally. And I recently encountered a person that we all know, Carol Brewer. About a month ago, we were at a common event, and she came up to me, and she met Jakki the first time in their involvement. They're both, Carol is the chair of the committee, and Jakki is a committee member for the Provost academic strategic planning process. And Carol said to me that if I ever get reincarnated, I want to come back as Jakki Mohr. She says, I absolutely love her. And I can't think of anything more powerful than that. And with that, I will introduce Dr. Jakki Mohr, A World Without Marketing, Blessing or Curse. We're anxious to learn which, Jakki.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. I'll tell you, Larry has introduced me before, and honestly, you know, I gave him just a little personal background, a little bit about the future, and all that stuff in the middle. It's always embarrassing to me. But what he did not tell you, and this is true, is that the first product I worked on at Hewlett-Packard was the HP 150 touchscreen. Do any of you remember this product? Okay, oh, okay. The second product I worked on was for a small mid-sized company in Cupertino, California called Televideo Systems, which actually declared bankruptcy shortly after I got there. And you know, in all my years of doing this, I have never attributed any cause and effect to my work at those companies to the failure of those products. Okay, but I do thank you for the introduction, Larry. What I'd like to do tonight is, first of all, thank Ray Castro, my graduate student, who has worked tirelessly with me on this presentation, and he's going to help me out tonight with the technical support. So imagine a world without marketing. What would that be like? We would have no annoying interruptions during dinner. We would have no stupid, repetitive TV ads. We would have no unsightly billboards cluttering our highways. We would have no gimmicky sales that are too good to be true. We would have no pushy salespeople. And especially, we might not even have that inane Twitter feed on Ashton Kutcher telling us about his life. Did you know that the average American is bombarded with over 3,000 marketing messages a day? And really, I think most of us would feel a sense of relief to be rid of these annoying intrusions in our life. On top of these intrusive aspects of marketing, we also have the question of questionable ethics in many marketing practices. Products are targeted and marketed towards vulnerable consumers. Products are marketed with misleading and sometimes downright inaccurate information. Companies market unsafe products. Companies also engage in stealth marketing. What stealth marketing means is marketing that is paid for that consumers don't know they're being marketed to. Two examples include what's called integrated product placement. Companies actually write the scripts for movies and TV shows now, and they pay for the filming of those shows. And oftentimes the plot is built around their products that star in a feature role. Stealth marketing also includes when companies hire your friends and neighbors, and they pay them to talk up their products. This is known as shilling. This is called ambush marketing. The fact is, we are deluged with all sorts of ads across so many media in our lives that we really don't know anymore where reality ends and marketing begins. Now, I could go on and on with many examples of suspect marketing. What I hope to do tonight in my time with you, I'm not sure if I'm getting two mics here or what. Is this okay if I just step back a little? Is I hope to accomplish 4 objectives tonight. First of all, I would like to inform you about the ways in which marketing does contribute beneficially to society, despite all the bad things that I've just mentioned. I also would like to acquaint you briefly with what I call the scholarship of marketing. I'm an academic, and at my heart, what I do is market research that specializes in the area of marketing and technology. So I'd like to acquaint you with a little bit of what the scholarship of marketing looks like. Third, I hope after you leave here tonight, you'll actually be smarter consumers, and I'll increase your marketing literacy a little bit. And I can thank my colleague Carol Brewer for saying, you have to educate these folks about being literate consumers. And finally, I hope that we'll talk a little bit about what I call the slippery slope of ethics in marketing. The fact is, we have many marketing practices that people would find very acceptable, but all of a sudden they sometimes fall into this gray area, and then before we know it, they're downright unethical. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that slippery slope. Okay, for those of you who are here to talk about how my company can market their products better, how to build a marketing plan, what's a marketing strategy, I encourage you to check out my book on that one. Now, was that stealthy enough for you? Okay, despite all that's bad about marketing, there are many ways that marketing contributes to society. First and foremost, the fact is, if we did not have advertising in our society, we would have no free media as we know it. Advertising pays for media. And as we all know, in this economic downturn, coupled with new technology trends, what we have found is that many papers have closed because they're not getting the advertising dollars that they need to survive. So I think it's something important to consider. Now, I'm not so naive as to be unaware of the problematic influence that advertising has on editorial content in the media. And at the same time, how else are we going to get the media? Now, many people say that Google killed journalism. Have you heard that phrase before? Online advertising killed the media. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later in my talk. Secondly, without marketing, we would have no distribution channels. Retailers and distributors are a very important part of the marketing function. And in fact, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on distribution tonight because my PhD was actually focused on distribution channels in high-tech markets. We're very specialized as academics. Distributions make goods available for you when and where you want them and in the quantities that you need. Now think about a world where we didn't have intermediaries or distribution channels. You might want a new pair of skis or a new snowboard for the upcoming ski season. How would you go about buying them if we didn't have a Bob Ward's? Well, you would have to somehow contact each individual manufacturer of each individual brand that you want to consider. And I don't know how you would find a way to demo or test the flex on that new board or those new skis because they wouldn't have stores in Missoula, Montana. It's too small. So somehow, once you decide what brand you want, then you'd have to place an order with them, and they'd have to ship your skis individually to you, which is a very costly prospect to ship individual things. Similarly, to buy your cereal or your bread, you'd have to contact each individual manufacturer who's going to ship goods individually to you. Now, I know we've got a big trend towards a buy local movement, and I'm very supportive of that, but it doesn't work for all sorts of goods. Even on the internet, which is supposed to make distribution sort of seamless and frictionless, how do you buy your airline tickets? Most of you go to Orbitz, Expedia, Travelocity. You don't go to United, Delta, and the other airlines to compare prices and flight times because it's unwieldy to go to 5 different websites. You go to one, and then you might jump over to Delta if you're a frequent flyer or can get a better deal, but where do you do your initial comparison? You do it with an intermediary because they make it easy. Now, of course, there's a very important intermediary that we all know and love, and it's eBay. Where else could you purchase those rare but must-have items like this ghost in a box? Now, we as consumers frequently begrudge the markup that the middleman takes, and we always say the prices of our goods would be lower if we weren't paying the markup for the bookstore or for Bob Ward's. But there's a saying in distribution. You can eliminate the intermediary, but you can't eliminate the function. If you eliminate intermediaries, either the manufacturer or the consumer will incur additional time and effort to get the goods that they want. This is why, if you go to the Runner's Edge in Missoula and you have Anders fit your running shoes for you, you should not then go home and buy the cheap pair of shoes on the internet that he sized and fitted you for because you can get them cheaper on the internet. This is an example of free riding behavior, and I consider it unethical consumer behavior. I should have used the example of the trailhead because I have the trailhead in the audience here, so same thing would go there. The scholarship of marketing examines very important distribution questions, such as, when does exclusive distribution actually harm consumer welfare? How can channel members work better together to squeeze costs out of the system and eliminate stockouts? What is the best mix of distribution channels in terms of what we call brick and click? You want to order online, but you want to be able to go to a brick and mortar store to either return it or try it on ahead of time. So what's that optimal mix where you're not free riding on Anders for that service? As a third illustration of the important role of marketing in society, we hate pushy, aggressive salespeople, but the fact is when we find a salesperson who really provides useful insights, we're very appreciative and grateful for their assistance. And think about your own pet cause or organization that you're involved in. If you need to generate awareness and attention for an important cause, how do you do that if not with marketing? Indeed, the state of Montana spends a lot of money on marketing the important attractions that we have in this state. How many of you are familiar with the latest campaign for the state of Montana? There's nothing here. This is true, yeah. It's been very controversial. A lot of people find it so sort of paradoxical to advertise there's nothing here, that they're concerned that maybe people won't come because there's nothing here. But that's the whole point. It's the pristine beauty of it all. Okay, marketing serves another important role in society. It brings needed products and services to impoverished people in the world. What you see on this slide on the left-hand side is a bamboo treadle pump. This is made by IDE, International Development Enterprises, a nonprofit organization whose job it is to help women spend less time getting potable water for their villages. So this bamboo treadle pump, they actually stand on and operate something like a bicycle, and it saves them labor. Clean cook stoves are made by a company out of Fort Collins called EnviroFit, indoor air quality from kerosene-burning stoves that many people in impoverished areas use is a major source of health problems. And EnviroFit actually has received design and innovation awards for their clean cook stoves that they're distributing in these areas of the world. We have one laptop per child, which is an initiative out of MIT where children in emerging economies are actually being given a laptop that connects to the internet through their governments and school systems. These examples highlight areas where marketing does play an important and productive role in society. And one of the most important roles that marketing serves, and it's my area of expertise, is how marketing is used to successfully commercialize technological innovations. Empirical research shows new technological innovations that offer a superior benefit are likely to fail unless they are accompanied with effective marketing. Technology-based products that succeed in the market are not necessarily the best. They are the ones that are the best marketed. This does not mean that technological innovations require expensive brand campaigns or mass media, but it means that the high-tech company has to allocate resources to marketing-related activities, developing a brochure, writing and distributing press releases for industry trade journals, attending trade shows. High-tech companies also have to foster a market orientation that values and solicits customer input. So especially in a community such as ours, where scientific innovation is so important to economic development, these small companies have to understand what is effective marketing and how can they use it. The scholarship of marketing has also done a very good job of measuring the relative contribution of investments in R&D relative to marketing expenditures. The impact of R&D compared to marketing does vary across different types of innovations. And marketing research has established that breakthrough innovations require a unique marketing approach. Companies that apply standard marketing, such as the techniques used for soda, shoes, or cars, will not be effective for high-tech products. Now, when I talk about marketing scholarship, there may be some of those of you who say, well, that's just theoretical, or that's purely academic. But what I find in my field is there's nothing so useful as a good theory. When we talk about marketing, it begs the question, what is marketing? Certainly, advertising is one of the most visible aspects of marketing, but marketing is not simply advertising, nor is it personal selling. First and foremost, marketing requires segmenting the market. What are the needs of different market segments, and how do you create value? Marketing is about forming relationships with customers. When trust is violated, companies lose customers and they incur additional costs. Marketing also means collecting marketing research to develop good customer insights to help with product development, pricing, and distribution. So what you see here, although advertising and sales are part of this promotion strategies in the lower right-hand corner, the marketing mix includes product decisions, pricing decisions, and place or distribution decisions as well. And if the product isn't designed from the outset to provide value to customers, it's likely to fail. There's a saying in marketing, the best way to kill a bad product is to advertise it. Now, my talk would be remiss if I didn't mention all of the new technologies that are used in marketing. Known broadly as new media, in contrast to the traditional media of radio or TVs, companies are relying on new technologies to reach their customers. There are 3 generations of technologies used for marketing. First generation advertising was on the TV screen. In 1965, if a company wanted to reach 80% of the US market, all they had to do was buy 3 ads on the major networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS. And just to harken back to those days, we have a little ad here for you.
Provost, white is white and clean is clean. The whitest white and cleanest clean you've ever seen.
Okay. Today, if a company wants to reach 80% of the US market through advertising on primetime TV, they have to buy 117 different ads. So certainly the world of marketing has changed. Second generation advertising refers to marketing on the personal computer or laptop. These would include display or banner ads posted by Yahoo, as well as paid search ads run by Google, and what marketers call behavioral targeting, which means using data about your past online browsing behavior to tailor ads specifically to your interests. Advertising on the third screen takes us into the mobile platform over cell phones. One of our successful local companies is Goomsy. They use text messages to help real estate agents nationwide. And the question is, why is this the third screen of advertising? I'm going to give you a few statistics here. More than 63 million people in the United States accessed online news and information from the mobile device at least once per month in 2009. This is up 71% from the previous year. The number of consumers who use their cell phones to access online content daily doubled to more than 22 million people a day. As consumers become more reliant on these devices for access to information, it's only logical that the advertising dollars are going to follow them there. So when I'm asked where technology is taking marketing, it's in the realm of mobile marketing, also known as location-based marketing. This is a key reason why Google has a new initiative called Android. And what they're doing is they're moving into operating systems and browsers, tools that they're providing to cell phone companies such as T-Mobile to make cell phones that they will be able to leverage as the next advertising platform with their search engine algorithms already built into it. Empirical research shows that companies that succeed in one generation of technology often fail to move to the next technology platform. And the company's strengths actually become liabilities that prevent it from seizing new opportunities. So you could think Kodak in digital photography, Sony with respect to MP3 players. Notice that I'm linking a company that didn't make the migration successfully at the outset. And unfortunately, our US car companies. The liability of incumbency is captured in the theory of disruption, and marketing scholars have found that one of the key traits that predicts whether or not a company is going to successfully migrate to a new technology platform is paranoia. Andy Grove, the former chairman of Intel, wrote a very famous book called Only the Paranoid Survive. And the whole idea is that companies that worry that their products and technologies are going to be made obsolete actually work harder themselves to pioneer those next generation technologies. So marketing scholars then study what can firms do to avoid being Amazoned, meaning outcompeted by a new competitor. Now, I personally find the auto industry executives disingenuous when they say that their troubles aren't their fault, that it's your fault as US consumers for buying the wrong cars. Auto industry executives say they're merely making cars that you all want to buy. And if they were being the leaders that our marketing scholarship says they should be, they would have a trait called bifocal vision, which means serving customers based on current preferences, as well as being forward-looking about trends in the future and proactively developing products for the markets of tomorrow. Like the hockey great Wayne Gretzky, executives don't skate to where the puck is, they skate to where it's going to be. Two of the most important trends today that businesses need to be aware of are society's expectations that you will give back in some meaningful way to the community, and that businesses will attend carefully to the carbon footprint of their business strategies. If I was going to leave academics and work in industry, the company that has most captured my imagination is a company called A Better Place. This is a car company, and it's partnered with Renault to manufacture its vehicles. But its business model is similar to the business model used by telecommunications companies. So how do you buy your cell phone plan? Just as you buy a certain number of minutes for your cell phone plan, the business model for A Better Place is, this company exists and is in operation, is you decide how much battery capacity you need, and the company's charging stations and robotic battery swapping devices deliver that for you. They actually subsidize the price of the car for you, and it's a 100% electric vehicle. They're currently working to have their network available in Israel, Denmark, the state of Hawaii, and San Francisco. Now, what do each of these areas share? First of all, they each have a small geographic footprint. They have very expensive fuel costs. At least in Israel's case, they have a very strong desire to free themselves from Saudi oil. And in Denmark's case, they have an excess of wind energy coupled with a very strong environmental ethic. Doesn't that sound interesting? Yeah, they're based in Palo Alto, California. The people who started it, the guy's a former software engineer, kind of a network guy. So believe me, as an academic, I could go on and on and on about waves of technology innovation. But I'm very worried that my talk would become dull and boring very quickly. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to jump to the topic of marketing ethics. There are many trade associations for marketing professionals that specify a code of conduct to guide appropriate ethical behavior. We have the American Marketing Association. We have the Word of Mouth Marketing Association. We have the Direct Marketing Association. We have the Society of Competitive Intelligence Professionals. We have the Marketing Science Institute. And these are just a few. But despite these codes of conduct, the line between ethical marketing and unethical marketing is crossed. Holy smokes. Ray, did you pilot those with me? Okay, next one. The first marketing practice I'll talk about is market segmentation. Market segmentation is a practice in which marketers divide the market into subgroups of people in society. The idea is to better tailor the products and services to unique segments of customers in order to find them useful. One of my former students, Chi Okazada, who lives in Tokyo, Japan, works at Panasonic Mobile. And she actually collects, go ahead and move forward here, Ray, thanks. One more. There we go. She actually collects market research that actually divides the market into different types of segments for mobile phone users. A part of the scholarship of marketing is pioneering new statistical methods such as cluster analysis to better identify these unique segments. And honestly, I think it's pretty hard to find this use of market segmentation offensive. But the data also show that an emerging market segment for cell phones is young children. And I start to get uncomfortable not only when my children are sending upwards of 2,000 text messages a month. I mean, think about how many that is per day, per hour sort of thing. But also when I see this level of usage in tweens. Tweens are children between the ages of 8 and 12. Another problem with teens and cell phones is a phenomenon called sexting, where teens actually are pressured to send pictures of themselves over the cell phone with, inappropriate sexually explicit pictures. Now, does this mean that market segmentation as a tool is acceptable only when the market segments identified are in our comfort zone? We may lament the intrusion of mobile telephony in our lives. Cell phone companies are now pursuing customers in developing countries, which are sometimes referred to in business as base of the pyramid markets. Base of the pyramid refers to the fact that they're very large in size at the bottom of the pyramid, but their relative affluence is very, very low compared to developed countries. Nokia uses a team of anthropologists to observe people who live in poverty and how mobile technology may improve the quality of their lives. One poignant use that was identified, although the technology is yet to be developed, is the use of cell phones to actually sense where a landmine might be lurking as people walk in their rural areas. An interesting study on mobile telephony by economist Rob Jensen, not to be confused with the famous biology Hellgate teacher, Rob Jensen. Do any of you know Rob Jensen locally? He's a great guy. Okay, the economist Rob Jensen found that sardine fishermen in Kerala, India experienced an 8% rise in their earnings when mobile telephony was introduced to allow them to price their catch of daily sardines. Now let's think about how this works. Prior to the introduction of cell phone technology, on a good day, the fishermen would actually catch too many sardines and they would make a lower price. But if the fishermen had too many sardines to make a good price, they could motor further down the coast and sell their sardines at a place further down the coast, but they had no guarantee that that would have been a better choice and they would have incurred additional fuel costs. On average, 5 to 8% of the catch was wasted prior to the introduction of cell phones, even when there were willing buyers at other areas along the coast. So along come cell phones. Now the fishermen call around the region to find the best prices. And by determining where they can best sell, the proportion of fishermen who sell their catch beyond the local market goes from 0% to 35%. No fish are wasted, and prices have converged at a point that was 4% lower than the introduction of the cell phones. Empirical research has documented this lift in economic mobility that cell phones provide. This technology can bridge what is known as the digital divide, the disparity in access to technology between haves and have-nots. The idea is that without access to technology, people do not have a level playing field when it comes to healthcare, education, and economic opportunity. And it's one of the key reasons that in this country there is a push for ubiquitous access to broadband, particularly in rural areas, including Indian reservations. But despite the lip service paid by the federal government, the US lags far behind the rest of the world in terms of broadband access. I think this is a problem. But I digress, and we'll go back to the ethics of segmentation. Which segments are considered acceptable and which are considered unethical for a company to target? R.J. Reynolds developed a brand of cigarettes in 1990 known as the Dakota brand. It targeted the virile female. These are blue-collar, poorly educated, 18 to 24-year-old white girls from working-class families with entry or low-level factory jobs. R.J. Reynolds' research showed this target segment would be susceptible to ads picturing exciting leisure or recreational sporting events. When word leaked to the press about Dakota's strategy, the new cigarette was quickly withdrawn, and this is now used as an example of unethical market segmentation. Market segmentation can lead to selling highly questionable products, such as cigarettes, to what marketers and the Federal Trade Commission refer to as vulnerable consumers. Vulnerable is defined by the FTC as elderly people, young people, particularly children, as well as those with insufficient education to make a good decision. Now, this, of course, begs the question of whether it's acceptable for the government to say some people are incapable of making their own choices. But when companies use market segmentation to develop and market unhealthy products to a consumer segment identified as vulnerable, the scholarship of marketing actually shows that people in society do expect the company to use a different standard. And the majority of people find marketing to these people under these circumstances, the majority of people in society do find it unethical. Okay, a second example of ethics in marketing. The standard acceptable practice known as customer relationship management. This is a strategy that categorizes customers into tiers based on volume and profitability. And the idea is a company's best customers get the best service. And this is acceptable for many types of goods and services. But the question is it acceptable to give preferential service based on ability to pay and profitability when it comes to healthcare, insurance, access to credit? And at the extreme, because CRM is based on a significant amount of customer data, it creates significant privacy issues.
Pizza Palace, guaranteed to have in 30 minutes or it's free. This is Mary. May I take your order?
Hi, Mary. Yes, I'd like to order.
Is this Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you for calling again, sir. I show your national identification number is 610-204-9998-45-54610. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I see you live at 736 Montrose Court, but you're calling from your cell phone. Are you at home?
I'm just leaving work, but I'm...
Oh, we can deliver to Bob's Auto Supply. That's at 175 Lincoln Avenue, yes?
No, I'm on my way home. How do you know all this stuff?
We just got wired into the system, sir.
Oh, well, I'd like to order a couple of your double meat special pizzas.
Sure thing. There'll be a new $20 charge for those, sir.
What do you mean?
Sir, the system shows me that your medical records indicate that you have high blood pressure and extremely high cholesterol. Luckily, we have a new agreement with your national health care provider that allows us to sell you double meat pies as long as you agree to waive all future claims of liability.
What?
Do you agree, sir? You can sign the form when we deliver, but there is a charge for processing. The total is $67 even.
$67?
Well, that includes the delivery surcharge of $15 to cover the added risk to our driver of traveling through an orange zone.
I live in an orange zone?
Now you do. Looks like there was another robbery on Montrose yesterday.
Okay, this actually goes on for quite a ways, and it actually gets a little more risque, so I thought that I would just stop it here. Okay, what this highlights is that it is downright unethical to misuse the data that a company collects. And this is a reality that we are heading to very quickly with marketing practices. Another area that highlights the slippery slope of marketing ethics is with respect to market research. When is it acceptable to use sophisticated strategies to collect data in order to increase the efficacy of a marketing campaign? Now, we have the Bureau of Business and Economic Research in the School of Business, and I think most people would find their surveys very useful and not at all unethical. But what if the research tool is MRI images of the brain that show what areas of the brain are activated with different types of ads? This is a field known as neuromarketing. And based on that, companies actually change their ad strategies. To a certain extent, this results in consumers being manipulated without your conscious knowledge. Okay, another area of marketing ethics, trademarks. When companies use trademark protection for things like the Nike swoosh, the Michelin Man, or a state marketing campaign, most of us would say trademarks allow a company to protect its investments in branding. But let's say that that trademark protection is for the word champagne. The country of France says that US sparkling wine companies may not call sparkling wine champagne because they've trademarked that, and it's unique to an area of France. And again, I actually think that's probably okay. It's a little bit over the top. It's a little different than Nike and the Michelin Man, but it definitely fits there. But let's decide David Lipson decides to appropriate and trademark Montana's phrase, the last best place. We're outraged about that. Yet nobody had trademarked it before. So what I'm trying to highlight here is that there is a slippery slope, and there are acceptable uses, and at some point we say, that's not okay. When is it acceptable, and how is it acceptable to get the word out about a company's cause? Each of these ads has a very disturbing image or a potentially disturbing message. Does that make these ads unethical? With respect to the meth ads in particular, they rely on what advertisers refer to as a fear appeal. Market research has shown that the effect of a fear appeal on consumer behavior has an inverted U shape. What this means is that low levels of fear don't result in a desired change in behavior, while very high levels of fear are so scary that they're actually screened out by consumers. So how does one reconcile these findings with the amount of fear in the meth ads, which is quite high? The level of fear has to be adjusted relative to the target market. The meth ads are targeted at teens, notorious for feeling immune to any harm or danger. And as a result, the amount of fear has to be proportionately higher to have the desired impact. Marketing research has similarly studied the use of sex in advertising and the use of humor in advertising. A final area I'd like to touch on briefly is the area of marketing and politics. As my friend Brian Laux said when I was discussing the topic of my talk, he said, "Our president is one of the greatest marketers of our generation." Politics is a nonstop theater of marketing, often at its worst. So would a world without marketing also be a world without political campaigns? Politicians use market research in a way that's extremely precise. And I'm going to show, it's a little bit longer of a video clip here from a show on PBS called The Persuaders. I want to say it's about 5 or 6 years old, but I'll let you judge for yourself your comfort level with the market research techniques that politicians are using.
Give us what we want. It has become the imperative that no corporation, or any persuader, can afford to ignore. That's why modern political campaigns have also come to rely on an army of pollsters and market researchers, all taking the moment-by-moment pulse of the man on the street.
I got a rule, which is cab drivers and antique dealers know more about America than anybody else. And when the cab drivers feel a certain way, I know I need to listen.
No one has imported the techniques and philosophy of market research into politics more successfully than Frank Luntz. His suburban Washington mansion is a shrine to the public zeitgeist.
Everything in here has a relationship to pop culture. It's what people prioritize in their lives. The truth is, as much as we want to focus on politics, the American people would rather watch television. As much as we want to talk about substance, they'd rather listen to music. So I have to know what they're watching, I have to know what they're listening to, and I got to know why.
Luntz has built his career on a simple idea. It doesn't matter what you want to tell the public, it's about what they want to hear. His clients have been some of the most prominent Republican politicians of the last decade. There was the mayoral campaign for Rudolph Giuliani in 1993, his work for Silvio Berlusconi in Italy, and especially his collaboration with Newt Gingrich on the famous Contract with America, the document that ushered in the Republican Revolution in Congress. Luntz gives his clients one consistent piece of advice: heed the public will.
There's one technique that's more important than anything else, and that's the technique of listening. And that's basically what I do. I ask a lot of questions, and I know how to listen. If an electricity company stood up and said, we want to do it for your benefit, we want to do it for our benefit, we want to do it for everyone's benefit, and so we have a better approach to efficiency and to environmental cleanliness. Is that kind of language positive or negative to you? Positive. By show of hands.
Tonight, Luntz's client is not a candidate, but a Florida utility wanting to build public support for a change in how it's regulated on the environment.
I know that the public is very down on corporate America in general, and they're down on power companies. So what is the language? What is the information? What are the facts? What are the figures that would get Americans to say, you know what? My electricity company, it's okay. 21st century technology. 1, 2, 3, 4. 21st century approach.
Luntz's specialty is testing language, finding words that work.
Integrity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Reliability. There's the other one. If an electric company can demonstrate accountability, responsibility, and reliability when it comes to the environment, will that make you feel better about them?
Yes. It's an art that even his political opponents grudgingly admire.
Frank Luntz doesn't do issues. He does language around issues.
Thank you. Okay, so I find this a little bit alarming, and I'm a marketing professor. With respect to the ethics of marketing, companies have taken standard acceptable techniques, fine-tuned them, and used them in a way that causes harm and violates our norms of acceptability. The cause of ethical lapses are complex and multidimensional. As Dane Scott, the director of UM's Center for Ethics, said on Friday during a brown bag for the business school faculty last week, the causes of unethical behavior include widespread imprudence in risk-taking, people who act with hubris in their own cleverness, people who overvalue one thing at the expense of something else, and sometimes people act just plain dumb, which Dane said can be a cause of moral failure. Unethical behaviors also arise because of a culture that promotes poor decision-making and a reward system that doesn't value ethical decisions. Business school faculty discuss these issues in our classes with our students to help them develop an ethical awareness about marketing and business strategies. We believe that when students go into the work world and find themselves pressured by managers to use deception, aggressive tactics, or other forms of questionable marketing, they are equipped with skills and the ability to offer creative solutions to accomplish desired outcomes that doesn't resort to unethical behavior. Now, this is very tough because the fact is we frequently hear in business, well, that's just the way business is done. And somehow this seems to imply that the means justify the ends. But the fact is, one thing that, the means justify the end. But one thing I've learned is the process that one uses to achieve the ends is important and has value. Now, further complicating the situation, of course, is what one person finds acceptable, another person may find unethical. And there are many different ethical traditions and philosophies that can be applied to any different scenario. And really, sometimes with respect to ethics, we end up overanalyzing, which leads to rationalizing poor choices and behaviors. Whose job is it to ensure ethical and effective marketing? Okay, certainly the decision makers in companies and organizations have an obligation to think carefully about the implications of their marketing strategies. Similarly, the government has and continues to play an important role. And I personally am a strong proponent of the role of government to provide oversight in areas such as antitrust laws and consumer protection laws. But the fact is, consumers themselves must be smart. Just as in healthcare, where we can't blame the system for our own unhealthy lifestyle choices, whether it's eating and drinking too much, not exercising, smoking, we have to take responsibility for our choices as consumers. And when you find company strategies to be objectionable, you should tell them. And you should support the companies that do it right. I also think that we need to have a next generation trained in smart, ethical decision making, and I think we're doing that. My significant other here in the second row is a reporter for the Missoulian, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention the important role of the media and other watchdog groups in outing unethical marketing and poor business strategies. And finally, I believe that the role of marketing academics has offered significant value to the field of marketing through the research and scholarship that we conduct. Here's a few examples of some of the research that my colleagues around the country are conducting. The impact of package size on consumption behavior with issues related to obesity, the impact of nutritional labeling on consumer choice, the effect of slotting fees, payments to retailers made by manufacturers to buy shelf space, the effect of slotting fees on access to distribution, and the findings from these studies are actually used by the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice to fine-tune public policy. A significant part of our jobs as faculty is to conduct meaningful research in our areas of specialty. The fact is, when it comes to marketing, we can't have selective marketing, saying that it's acceptable only for some of the causes that we believe in, and then saying others can't use it if we disagree with their application. We can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yes, marketing can be irritating, annoying, invasive, and certainly unethical, and poor marketing does cause real harm. Let's use technology as an analogy. Technology is not inherently evil. It's the uses one puts it to. Similarly, marketing is not inherently evil. Its impact depends on the purposes that it's used for and how it's implemented. Problems with marketing often have more to do with what's being marketed and how it's being marketed than the idea of marketing itself. So what I hope that you've gathered through my talk here tonight is that marketing does provide many benefits to society, and I've only mentioned some of them here. My favorites: commercializing scientific innovation and distribution and providing for the media. And what we need is continued progress in the science and practice of marketing, as well as adherence to a higher standard of ethics in marketing. So, the answer to my question: a world without marketing, blessing or curse. As is true in so many other domains in our life, politics, technology, even certain relatives that I know, the answer is yes. I thank you for being a great audience, and Ray, I want to thank you for the great job on the visuals. Greg was my technical support person in the back of the room, and I thank you for that. I'd like to thank my many colleagues who are here from the business school for your ongoing support over the years, and I very much value your friendship. Larry, Royce, and of course George, who's not here, I thank you for your support. And at this point, Larry is going to moderate questions for me. Thank you.
While we have her here, let's take advantage.
I do know people had 7 o'clock classes and meetings. Simone is taking her whole class out the back door.
Okay, let me give a shot at this. I appreciate your attention to all that's unethical about marketing, and I'm glad to see you an advocate for more governmental activity in that regard. But I guess I have to say that my concern is that not only is there so much unethical advertising and other marketing, so much so that we just take it for granted that marketing is unethical. We all just assume that there's unethical marketing at every turn. My concern also is that we're so awash in marketing all the time. Our culture seems sometimes to be, just like television, one big marketing vehicle. I guess I'm interested to know what marketing academics and other marketing professionals who maybe aren't in the direct employ of corporations, let's say, what any of you are doing, not just to write lists of ethical behavior or ethical guidelines. They're important, but they're easy. They're easy to write. What are professionals like your colleagues doing to actually seek greater policing of such ethics? And what I would argue is a degradation of our whole society by all this hyperbole, all this deceit, which I think has degraded the level of dialogue and values in our whole country. What's being done to police that?
It's a very good question, and I hear other people raising similar issues. Yes? Yeah, it's a great question. Now, when marketing is done properly, I'm not sure I'm in some magic spot here that resonates, echoes. When marketing is done properly, the whole idea is that it should be based on trust. So if we take what SIG water bottles did recently, where 3 years later they said, oh, by the way, we knew we had BPA-contaminated liners, we just didn't tell you all. That violates the trust of the consumer market. And what companies and academics are doing is to go back to this issue of how do they regain trust. What I'm hearing you say is it's so far gone there's no possibility because it's degraded society at its very core. I think that you're right to some extent. I don't think marketing can be singled out as the cause of social degradation. Certainly there's a piece to it, but I think people have responsibility. Who does marketing? Okay, we can point the finger at marketers, but this is where I come back to. We each individually create the society that we live in, and our own behaviors on the aggregate create what we see. And so yes, poor marketers have some blame to play. And in terms of the policing, codes of conduct, they might be words on a page, but I would argue that most professional, reputable marketers really care about doing those things right. Is it enough to tip the scale? I can't say. Where are we going? What I worry about where we're going is this video clip that we showed on CRM data. That's something that's very scary to me personally. The neuromarketing, it's very scary to me personally. Government regulation, is that what we want to solve this problem? I'm not sure that that's the answer either. Did I hear you say yes?
Given how very little there is from the FTC and other regulators, and given how relatively few ethical marketers are, their impact, months.
Yes.
Politics is no longer a dialogue of different ideas. It's an exchange of who's got the more powerful market. So
I share your concern.
Maybe we do need a little more regulation, or I don't know what. I guess I'm asking, what are professionals doing to search for some of those answers?
All I can say is there is a lot of inquiry, and I think simply surfacing the impact of these practices on society is a big part of what needs to happen, and that is being done, and without the research, these things wouldn't be surfaced. So I can't say that all of a sudden they've got the magic bullet or the silver bullet or that we do. What I teach in my class is, and I say this from the day one with my students, you know, I cannot teach you how companies are doing it that I think that they're engaged in poor business practices. They may be successful in the short term. I don't know that they'll be successful over the long term. What I'm going to teach you is the way marketing should be done in order to have trust of people in society. So it could be a generational thing. I don't know if the pendulum is swinging or if it's just going to be an ongoing trend. I wish I knew the answer. It's a big issue.
Okay, identify yourself and ask your question.
Hi, my name's Dylan, and I'm very aware of neuromarketing as well, and it scares me to death. And I came across an institute called the Bright House Institute of Mind Sciences. And are you familiar with this institute? No?
This is a very new field.
Yeah. Well, I heard that they are being sued, but they put people in MRIs, and they study their brain activity while they're watching commercials, and then people are conditioned to associate feelings of happiness with their product. And I heard they were being sued. So I was just wondering possibly if you knew about that, because he was saying what is being done, and this neuromarketing company being sued is one maybe of the first steps that is one of the actions that is being taken. So.
Yeah, and I think in this case, it's hard for me to comment because I don't know about the company or the lawsuit. This is a very new field, and as I said before, I do find it manipulative of consumer behavior. It's very different than other areas in marketing where we see consumers suing companies for obesity or suing companies for choices that they made, and I'm not absolving companies of responsibility because the marketing techniques at some level do take away consumer free choice because of the power of the techniques. So it could be that that's an area where we're going to see some regulation because it's very, very disconcerting.
Absolutely. And I have another question. I heard that Walmart is now putting radio frequency ID chips in a lot of their clothes.
Yes.
And now there's a program that you can walk through. You're walking through a mall.
Yes.
And the program it tags you so that as you're walking through, they can scan and see every product that you own or everything you've bought. Do you know anything more about the radio frequency ID?
I do. Radio frequency ID chips are small little fingernail-sized chips that are embedded either into individual items or pallets of goods. They are originally introduced as a way to simplify inventory tracking in the distribution channel, and because Walmart is so sophisticated with distribution, they saw it as a way to gain efficiencies. Since then, it's been tagged on individual items, and one of the first uses was to look at pilfering and theft at the point of purchase, where the RFID signal actually sends a signal at the point of purchase and then again at checkout. And through the cameras that they have monitoring, they can determine if there was theft. Walmart actually stopped doing that because of consumer privacy concerns. Another use of RFID tags is tagging at the point of purchase in the grocery store for perishable items, that your refrigerators are going to be smart refrigerators, that the tag actually tells you when the item is beyond its best if used by date. But again, concerns about consumer privacy have limited that. So the uses of technology in this regard, and this is my area of expertise, is very frightening. And what I see happening is that, maybe I'm naive, but I really believe that companies who harness this technology to improve distribution will actually lower costs for consumers. There will always be companies who misuse the data or find some use that maybe makes us uncomfortable. But honestly, I would say Google's access to the data they have on us should be making all of us very uncomfortable in this room. So it's really easy. This is the slippery slope I was talking about. It's really easy to highlight and hone in on the ones that are most visible and maybe most egregious. But if we just back up a little bit, we're not so far gone with some other companies using kind of similar techniques. We don't call it RFID, but Google's tracking of your behavior is no different. And I'm not justifying that. Right. I'm just saying I don't think we can single out these instances as being particularly egregious. They all have a risk associated with them.
How do we protect?
Why don't we have someone else come up and ask a question? Appreciate your questions, though. Thank you.
Hello, I'm
Hi.
Kelly McCann. Well, I've got a question regarding, well, you mentioned a better place, motors, and I was kind of looking into Tesla Motors the other day. And how do you think companies like this, they're trying to approach the government in order to get subsidies and different things like that, how should they do that as far as marketing to representatives?
Okay, if you could repeat your question for me, you're talking about Tesla Motors, which
Right.
makes an electric vehicle that gets very, like 300 miles, something like this. I'm not sure what it is, but it's really quite good. And a better place. But then you mentioned government regulation and subsidies, and I didn't follow you there.
Well, from what I understand, Tesla Motors right now, they charge something like $80,000
Yes, they're quite
for
expensive.
their car.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people call it, kind of a rich person's environmental, excuse, definitely popular in Hollywood and things like that.
Yes.
But and a lot of these companies, they're trying to get the government, right, to help them subsidize their products or subsidize the technology that's going into their products in order to further their business practices in the name of sustainability. But they don't have the marketing power that some other organizations do to contact the population of, like Montana and say, ask your senator to do this. So exactly what's legal as far as, or what's ethical as far as talking to representatives and trying to do something almost kind of outside of asking the people their constituents, what they think about it.
So the question is about the ethics of companies lobbying to get subsidies? Am I following you?
Yes, but in particular sustainable, obviously, things that are good for our future.
Right. Again, this is a mixed blessing, and we could talk about lobbying in any domain. And is it egregious when we lobby for sustainable technologies, or is that maybe the best use of lobbying? Because even though we're damned if you do and damned if you don't, at least we're going to get good technology out of it. And I say that very cynically. I hope you gathered that. I think lobbying in all its forms is a significant problem.
Okay.
And so I wouldn't have a double standard for lobbying when it comes to sustainable technologies. I think it's a significant problem.
Okay, and then I guess another question would be, how do you think these companies should go about making these kind of changes? Because obviously, they, $80,000 is too much money, for a car. And so they're trying to get the government to subsidize, technology and investment into new battery technologies and stuff like that.
What we see over time with any technology, typically when it first comes in the market, it's very expensive because it's unproven, it's untried, and there's usually an early market of adopters who are willing to pay top dollar to be first. They actually delight in buying a product that is buggy, meaning it doesn't work entirely well, because they want to be one of the ones to find those problems. They delight in that. And as the company gets more experience, and as we have the technology observed by other people, it diffuses through society in such a way that we get economies of scale in production over time and the price can come down. But unless we're willing to subsidize it from the outset at a low price point, or the company is willing to take a loss, typically what we see is introduce at a high price point, learn, gain efficiencies, economies of scale, and then lower the price point as more and more people adopt it over time. Prius did exactly the same thing, but they didn't start at $80,000 because it wasn't a purely electric vehicle. I also think we're going to have some improvements in technology with respect to batteries, and I think that's going to lower the price point before too long here.
So just so I make sure, you think that the private, as far as any subsidy for this stuff, as far as going, you think definitely should stay in a private economy?
No, the question was about lobbying. I don't think that there should be lobbying for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as subsidies for this kind of stuff, you don't think that there should be any way to go outside of constituents?
No, the subsidy issue, I think, is a different one. I think if we don't have some way to encourage people to make the shift, it's potentially problematic. And we see a lot of that in our industries, where we get such a dominant design in command of the market that it's very, very difficult for any new company to come in. And that's where we typically see some sort of antitrust help, where we have a company like Microsoft who says, okay, we need to have some new forms of innovation in the market. As far as subsidies, I have real mixed feelings about those too, but I think it could be a semantic issue.
Okay, thank you.
Why don't we join Jakki back here for a reception, and we'll all have an opportunity to visit more with her. Thank you for coming, and thank you, Jakki.
Thank you. Thank you, Ray.